Welcome back to D&D Storytime, the podcast. I think I've said this before, but these are relatively low effort, and people generally like them much better than my schizoid ranting. I still have rants in me, but I've got higher priority things I want to focus on right now, so this is good just to keep episodes coming out, so it's not an abandoned podcast. Anyway, this one's shorter. It's just 2 sessions. And obviously I'm going to focus on my character, so I'll set the stage with my backstory and then introduce the rest of the party, and then we can go through what happened. And at the end of this, I think you'll understand the system and why it's evil, and how Kanye West relates to that. That's a call forward. So my character is named Marlin Whittley-Scuds. He's known as Marlin the Wizard. So Marlin is a rogue. Fooled you, right? And Marlin is kind of dumb, kind of doesn't think ahead, so he wanted to join his local thieves guild, and so he went and he looked at their job postings and he applied to the only one, which ended up being for the guild mage. Except he didn't read that closely, so he just went to the interview, and then they asked him to show some of his magic abilities, and he panicked and he did some card tricks, some sleight of hand, he lied his ass off, and it worked. They hired him. So he started working at this thieves guild as the guild mage, as a rogue with no magic powers, and he just panicked. He stumbled into the situation and he didn't know what to do, so he just faked it. He would paint crossbow bolts different colors with ink or paint, and he'd claim that these were enchanted, so the red bolts did fire damage and the purple bolts did psychic damage. And he would make mystic sounding incantations and pretend to be blessing people or giving them enchantments. So he'd say, "Aha, you're better at stealth now." And people just kept falling for it. So they were like, "This guy is doing fucking great. How about we get him some formal training? We're going to send him to a magic academy so he can learn more spells and become a better mage for the benefit of the guild." So they told Marlin to find a good academy and they'll pay his tuition, full scholarship, they'll just put him through. So Marlin found a pamphlet for some school, didn't read it that closely, applied as a wizard, got in, and it turns out this is an adventuring academy. You don't have to be a magic user, you could have just applied as a rogue or anything. But of course Marlin didn't realize that until he was already there, and fearful that admitting that he lied on his application would get him expelled, he just committed to keeping up this act. And that's basically Marlin's backstory. Because the campaign, the mini campaign, starts at orientation, like a registration where everybody's moving into campus. So let's go through the characters. There was a whole family that came in. I think they were a family. I only have proof of relationship with 2 of them, but they always came together, so either a literal family or, I chose my community family. 2 parents, a mom and a dad, potentially, and then these 2 kids who had some kind of disability. They weren't, retarded. They were all there mentally. It was like autism of the body or something. They had trouble controlling their bodies, including speech, so sometimes it was hard to understand them. They were in wheelchairs. I was kind of reminded of that guy on YouTube who won the Oprah contest, who had the sexiest of the palsies. I don't know what they had. It kind of made me think about how unfair life is and how good I have it, where my only disability is my brain thing. Anyway, their dad came with them the first time, and then the second time, the dude didn't show up, but his mom came and played his character. Which is a shame, because the dude was actually pretty fucking funny. Anyway, his character was this giant barbarian, and he had no name because he was covered in scars, just this terrifying looking monster, and he had a huge scar across his throat, so he couldn't speak, and so he couldn't introduce himself to us, so we had no name for him, so we just called him Scar or Scarthroat, which I guess is a pretty clever way to avoid having to talk too much if talking is kind of a struggle. And the girl played a bard whose name was Gem, and she had this really dark, epic backstory of being kidnapped and tortured by demons, and her parents were killed by them, and they pumped her full of toxic drugs or something. I don't remember all of it, but it was pretty dark compared to the goofiness of every other character. Their dad played Sir Ketchup, who was heir to a condiment empire. Yes, that ketchup. And he was this very prim and proper, super rich guy, wanted to be an adventurer, and he was always thinking about different condiment ideas, and he was always trying to come up with new sauces. And also note, Sir was his first name. He wasn't a knight, his parents just had high hopes for him. And he was a paladin. And then we had a monk named Cash. He had this big long name, but I just remember Cash. And he was some kind of dream creature. Like, the origin of the race is they were in a dream and somehow got into the material plane. And he's from this dream monastery where they brew kombucha, but when he got to the material plane, he continued brewing it and just did it super wrong, so it came out crazy alcoholic. And he's always drinking it, and so he's constantly drunk. Except he's from the dream realm, so he thinks this is just what it feels like to be in a material plane. He's never been sober. He was a drunken master monk, so it makes sense. And then we had Kelvin, a cleric, and his story was he was from some kind of cleric order, and he kept dying, and they kept having to resurrect him. And he said, it's getting really expensive to resurrect you all this time. We're going to send you to the school to learn to fend for yourself better so you don't die so much. And then we had Orgel. Orgel was the same player who played Vortrin, the best guy. And his character was a half-orc wizard, and he was the son of a human wizard who fucked an orc, so badass. So his dad, this crazy powerful human wizard, went to the same school and was expelled for some fiery but mostly peaceful incident. And Orgel had this whole thing where, like all half-orcs, he hates the human side of his heritage and just identifies as the orc part, and so he's trying to not be like his old man. Kept his tusks real long, and he wanted to... You guys think I look like an orc? Anyway, we're all at orientation, and Marlin shows up, and he's got these two huge thugs with him from the Thieves Guild who are helping him carry shit and move in, and they made some comment, "Hey, you nervous, Marlin?" And I think the DM was just trying to, introduce the scene, but I wanted to make it so that Marlin's kind of picked on, because he's a little halfling wiener boy. I forgot to mention, Marlin's a halfling. He's tiny. So I said, when he asked if I was nervous, "Stop making fun of me! You can't make fun of me! The boss said you can't make fun of me!" And they was like, "Oh, I'm not making fun of you, I'm just asking if you... Oh, come on!" And then they pick up my bed and move me in. Yes, I brought my own bed. You can do that when you're a wizard. Next is Scar for registration. He shows up alone, carrying all his own shit because he's fucking huge. He's got this giant great axe, and he goes up to the registration table and they say, "Oh sir, you gotta turn in your weapon." So he drops his great axe, cuts the fucking table in half, and then screams, "I am a weapon!" Not in character, because he can't talk as a character, but he just did at the table, and I fucking cracked up. I don't know if I'm lame or not. It's fucking funny. You're lame, shut up. And Cash showed up where all he brought with him was the clothes on his back and then several suitcases just full of kombucha. I'm not sure if they were even bottled. I think they were just suitcases filled to the brim with liquid. And then everyone else. I don't think anything else interesting happened with check-in. So we get in, we get our roommate assignments, and my roommate is Cash, the monk. And I don't remember how anyone else was roomed, but Cash was my roomie, and the jocks liked him because he was fit and athletic and had a lot of booze. And I got carried along because I'm his roommate and he won't abandon me. At first, Marlin tried to avoid Cash because his very first impression of him was they met and found out they were roommates, and then Cash said he was going to go run laps. And then Marlin sits at the window in their shared room and sees him out there on a track running and then puking on a track and just continuing to run, dribbling vomit. Because Cash is forever drunk. So Marlin hid from him at meals and stuff, but eventually the two grew closer, mostly because Cash would physically pick Marlin up and carry him along whenever stuff was happening. So as we're all getting settled, starting to meet each other, Orgel can immediately tell that I am not a real wizard. Everyone else is fooled because I'm wearing a blue robe with yellow stars on it and a hat designed the same, and I'm just kind of looking around, making sure no one notices me and acting all magical. But Orgel can see through that, and he sees me and he says, "What's your deal? You're not a real wizard." And throughout the campaign, Orgel has this grudge against me because he's a very proud wizard and he can tell that I'm faking it. But every time he tries to prove me wrong, he rolls so badly that he makes himself look like an idiot and I come out ahead. He also burned a lot of spell slots fucking with me, which is hilarious. Like, not in battle, just hanging around the hallways, he'll cast Levitate on me to make me float around. And I'm just, kicking my legs, can't do anything. But then everyone else would see it and like, oh look, the wizard's levitating, like I did it to myself. There's also a point where we took a bathroom break and a DM was taking a piss or something and Orgel was getting annoyed with something I was doing. Not in person. We get along great, but, we're role-playing. His character was annoyed with Marlin, so he used Shocking Grasp on me, where he touches me and electrocutes me. And so I spit and used Shape Water to create a thin line of spit from me to him, so that he shocked himself in a circuit, and we split the damage of that spell. It was a total of 9, I took 5, he took 4. At one point, Cash offers Kelvin a drink of kombucha, and it's so crazy strong as an alcoholic drink that Kelvin starts feeling sick, and so he comes to me and says, "You're a great wizard, do you have any cures for what ails me?" So I take a glass of water, mutter some arcane sounding bullshit over it, and I hand it to him. And as he's drinking it, I scurry away, so I can't have any consequences for what just happened. But Kelvin does feel a little better, because if you don't feel good, try having a glass of water and see if that helps. Rules for life. Joke's on you, this is a schizo-advanting episode. Drink more water. So we go down to the Great Hall. Picture the Harry Potter Great Hall. And the Dean talks to us, and Orgel, for some reason, tries to put the Dean to sleep, and fails, but the Dean notices, so he casts Maze on him, which is an 8th level spell. So the Dean's pretty powerful, and so Orgel gets teleported to some extra dimensional maze for a while. And then the Dean does his normal welcome to school spiel. And he says there's going to be some kind of orientation test where we all go down to the football stadium. I don't think football exists in this world, but basically a football stadium. And they'll team us up into groups and we'll fight some golem to prove our worthiness. And wouldn't you know it, we all get paired together. What a coincidence. So we start the encounter and the golem hasn't actually appeared yet. We don't know it's a golem. When it was announced, we were just told it was some kind of test to prove our mettle. So we're on one edge of the field, and I forget that I am a halfling and a rogue and pretending to be a wizard, all things where you kind of keep to the sidelines, because I'm still thinking like my last character, Dingus, and so I just walk right into the middle of the field, like, hey, let's start this. And the golem shows up in the middle of the field, and he immediately kills me. The end. Now please join me in bowing our heads for 20 minutes of silence to mourn Marlin. Kelvin heals me back up. I get up, I scurry away to safety, and we kill the golem. It's funny because throughout the fight, I would hide behind Orgel, because he's very large, and halflings have a thing where they can hide behind larger creatures. So he'd go stand somewhere, cast a spell, I'd go stand behind him, pull out one of my bolts and say, ah yes, fire damage, and I'll do fire spell, and then shoot my crossbow, and Orgel would say, get away from me, and he'd move away, and I'd just follow up behind him, hide behind him again, and shoot again. I don't know what it is with me and Vortrid, but we always end up in a situation where my character's always bugging him. Anyway, we kill the golem, it takes us 13 seconds, good show, good time, then we go into the stands, and then the next group starts. And the next group has one guy named Prince Azuba, who is the Prince of the Kingdom, a very big shot. Except something goes wrong with the golem, because the golem is fucking him up. It's killing everyone, knocking them all out, and clearly something's going wrong. So we all jump back down on the field and help save Prince Azuba and kill the golem again, except the golem's a bit stronger this time. And Kelvin again does mass healing word and saves like 5 lives, because everyone from the next group is down except for the prince. So we kill the golem, and everyone cheers. The Dean looks kind of upset. He doesn't like what happened. So the Dean storms off, and Cash decides he wants to follow the Dean. and he picks me up and carries me for some reason. And then Orgel decides he's gonna follow us. I used one of my rogue class features to help Cash with his stealth check, and I told him it was a stealth spell. So the Dean failed his roll to notice us, and we failed our rolls to notice Orgel, and we continued in this cartoonish chain of stalking and followed the Dean to some shady window where he talks to some kind of bat-wing demon creature and mentions a particular frat and then wanders off. The frat is Beta Lambda Delta, or some other combination of Greek letters. By now, we know that there's some shady dealings going on with the Dean and a frat and a demon, apparently, which never comes up again. So we think, we learned something, let's go eat dinner. So we go to dinner, we try to find Prince Azuba to see if he's okay. And we can't find him, but we do find the rest of his group, and they're looking pretty busted up because they failed their orientation test, I guess, or just did badly. I don't remember how it works, but we lied to them so that they would give us Azuba's room number, and then we went up to check it out. Nobody was home, it was locked. I said, hey, hold on, I got a spell for this, and then I picked the lock. Used my lockpick tools. And we went in, and there were signs of a struggle, and there was a blanket rope going out the window. Seems like Prince Azuba was kidnapped or something. So we climb down on that same rope, and we see footprints, we follow them, and it takes us to Frat Row. And then, because there's so much traffic, we lose track of the footsteps we were following. But we're there, we already know about the shady business with Beta Lambda Delta, so we figure, let's go check out that frat house. And Beta Lambda Delta is like the cool guy, jock frat house, you know? Like, it's the cool one. Not the nerdy one, like the one I would be in. So we go to the house, we knock on the door, nobody answers. Door's locked. We go to the window, see nobody in there. Lights are all off. And Jem, the bard, casts Detect Magic, and she detects one, that there's some kind of magic on the door, so if I had tried to pick it, it probably would not have gone well. And also that the house is full of undead. There's a lot of necrotic magic. And people started talking about breaking in and investigating, but it was strongly hinted by the DM that we should not try this. And so we did not, and we went back. But we did find a flyer on the door or next to the door saying that there's going to be a big party the next week when classes start for all students, because we were all freshmen, so we showed up to campus early. I think at this point, the family had to leave because the kid who was playing Scar was getting real sleepy. He apparently goes to bed super early for some reason, and that's why he didn't show up to the second time, because he just can't stay up that late. So they left, and we were done with all the combat. What happened next was we chose our houses. Like Harry Potter, guys! You see, Trump is Voldemort, and AOC is Hermione, and kill me. So there are 4 houses, one for strong athlete types, one for magic users, one for cunning, sneaky guys, and one for the gays. Orgel and Kelvin sign up for the magic one, Cash signs up for the athlete one. And I think about going for the sneaky one, because I am a rogue, but instead I sign up for the magic one, which gives me a point to intelligence, which is useless because it goes from 8 to 9, my modifier is still -1. I mean in real life, that's why I didn't bother going to college. It also gives us a level, so we get to level up. This is basically at the end of the session, so we would level up and then the next session we'd be level 6. We also signed up for some classes, and I took Making Friends and Influencing People, Magic 101, Illusion Magic, and Familiars. And we were supposed to use Discord between the 2 sessions to talk to DM and figure out exactly what happened with the courses we took and if they give us any benefits or anything, but I got banned off Discord. And in general I deserved it, but for the specific situation that triggered it, I did not deserve it and it's bullshit. So I just didn't do it. But I did level up my character, and I took a level of Sorcerer, specifically a Wild Mage Sorcerer, which means every time I cast a spell, there's a small chance that some crazy shit happens. You roll on this chart with, I think, 50 outcomes, and you see which one of those things happens. It's very unlikely. Whenever you cast a spell, you roll a d20, and if it's a 1, it happens. And we have a house rule where every time something doesn't happen, it goes up by 1. So the second time you'd have to roll 1 or 2, third time would be 3 or less, to kind of increase the odds of crazy shit happening over time. But also let me take a couple spells. So I am a real mage. When I signed up for the magic school, it gave me some kind of arcane tattoo on my forearm, which is quite badass looking. The ladies are gonna love that. Aside from me being a manlet, but I figured it was reasonable that gave me some magic powers or awakened something in me. Anyway, since I couldn't get on Discord, I didn't actually collect any of the perks or benefits that came with my classes, if any. Except for the familiar, because that was just a straightforward, you get a familiar. And I made mine a tortoise, wearing a little magic hat like the one I have with little yellow stars. And I named him Orgle but Better the Tortoise the First Esquire. And Orgle loved it when I told him that I named him after him. I drew him too, he's on my character sheet. There's a drawing of me looking nervous holding a crossbow in my wizard outfit, and then next to me a little tortoise wearing a wizard hat. Maybe I'll include a picture of it in the video version. Anyway, so in the second session, it's been a week. We've all been taking our classes or learning whatever. We got some money to spend, about 400 gold, and Kelvin spent all of it going to someone from Snivy House. Snivy is the cunning rogue one. And he ordered a +5 suit of plate mail armor. And if you don't know D&D, +5 is a ridiculous level of magic. Like, the official source only goes up to +3 on weapons and armor. +5 is basically impossibly rare by normal rules, and definitely not for 400 gold. So what I'm getting at is that Kelvin was scammed by some rogue guy. And obviously, the player did this on purpose as a joke. He's not stupid, you dummy. Anyway, I found a Snivy goblin and purchased a hand crossbow from him because they took all our weapons and I wanted to be armed. And then I asked him if he had a greatsword, and he pulled out of his little tiny goblin robe this giant greatsword, and Sir Ketchup bought that. And everyone else bought weapons too. But note that I'm the smart boy who remembered that we were disarmed. Truly, I have the intellect of a great wizard. So then we're on campus and we're thinking about this frat party that's happening at Beta Lambda Delta. And we want to get into it because we're pretty sure Princess Zuba was kidnapped and is being held there. But how to get in? After some investigation, we find that it's invite only. You need to get an invitation, and to get an invite, you gotta be real cool. And as we're thinking about this, we see a guy from Beta Lambda Delta walk up to some bard playing a ukulele, like this hippie dreadlocks dude, and gives him this little black and gold coin. So you go up and talk to the hippie, and we find out these coins are the invitations, and they're personalized and non-transferable, so we won't have much luck forging it or stealing it. We're gonna have to somehow earn our own invitations. And we think, well, we're just some loser freshmen. How are we gonna figure that out? His name was Stefan. Stefan the Bard. So Stefan says, you know what would be cool? If you go into the Forbidden Woods and capture a displacer beast and put a costume on it and bring it to the party. Which is a pretty ludicrous idea. Curious how this random guy just sitting on the quad playing a ukulele thought, hey, this is a surefire way to get into a party. And displacer beasts are like giant panthers with tentacles who can make illusions of themselves and are really good at hiding. Pretty dangerous. So we go into the woods, the Forbidden Woods, and Sir Ketchup takes this greatsword and puts a stake on the end of it. This will be a good way to attract a monster. And so we're walking through the woods, he's waving it around, and at this point I think 3 of us have familiars. I think Orgles is a hawk, and Cash has something, and I've got my tortoise, who's also named Orgle. Orgle but Better the Tortoise the First Esquire, to be specific. Orgle and Cash send their familiars out to kind of scout and look for displacer beasts. And I tell Orgle but Better the Tortoise the First Esquire to also go, but he's a tortoise, so, you know, he's going very, very slow. And we end up passing him. Orgle's hawk does find displacer beast, who then jumps up and eats his familiar. And now we're basically in combat. And at this point, we're up there fighting and the tortoise is still trying to catch up. And this would have been a pretty epic fight, except Orgel cast Hypnotic Pattern and dazed the Displacer Beast for a full minute, which is many rounds in combat. So while the Displacer Beast is dazed, we start tying it up. I talk to it in Elvish and ask if it wants to go to a party with us. And then Jem charms the beast with a spell and also just plays the violin for it. And this Displacer Beast basically falls in love with Jem and they're best friends. And then another Displacer Beast shows up, and it turns out the one we found was a girl, and her boyfriend showed up and was mad that we were kidnapping his girlfriend. After the game, I found out that was a plan. The DM just was dismayed that this planned encounter was just immediately shot down, so he threw another one at us. So we killed the boyfriend, and then the girl Displacer Beast still came along with us. Even after the charm spell ended, she was just infatuated with Jem and didn't care that we killed her boyfriend, and so she just came along with us. She's probably glad we killed him. I bet he beat her and didn't respect her. And now she's finally giving a greasy nice guy like me a chance. Fucking bitch. So we get back to campus and we're walking down the street. A bunch of people are riding on top of her. We put a Letterman jacket on her. I'm walking in front throwing rose petals like being a parade lead herald guy. And everybody's looking at us like, bro, that's super cool, dude, wow. And an RA walks up to us and she says, where'd you get that? You can't have that here. Don't bring that into the dorms. This isn't good. I have to report you. I don't remember who it was, but someone did a good enough charisma roll or persuasion roll that they basically shamed the RA into dropping the matter by saying that she was ruining the vibe. And so she gave in and said, alright, fine, but just don't bring it into the rooms, into the dorms. And we continue our parade, and then we're approached by Sebastian, who is the king of Beta Delta Lambda Delta of the frat. The president. He's the president. He was duly elected. And he's very impressed with our Displacer Beast, and he gives us all coins, so we're invited to the party. Hell yeah. And we get some time to do whatever we want, so Kelvin spends it looking for the guy who he gave 400 gold to, trying to get his plate mail armor, but he can't find him. I use Prestidigitation to clean up my clothes and Kelvin's clothes, and then I use the same spell, Prestidigitation, to give myself an Axe body spray odor. Prestidigitation is a cantrip. It's one of those creative spells where you can do all kinds of things with it, and it's really just up to your imagination how you use it. So I basically spent like 4 hours in preparation for this party just spraying myself with Axe body spray. I'm gonna kill it at this party. And then I think the only other interesting thing was Scar, who was now being played by the kid's mom, and who between sessions, in my headcanon, had a large number of cosmetic surgeries to get a sex change and get all the scars removed and regain the ability to talk. So the character was now named Cordelia, and everyone who saw her could still tell it was a man, but we were all very polite, and so we just went along with it. But she went to the Barbarian sorority, which is just a sorority of beefy Amazonian chicks, and they gave her a bunch of gear and they were very supportive, and they said, I can't believe you're invited to that Beta Delta Lambda party. That's gonna be great. It's actually a pretty cute bit all around. Anyway, we show up to the party and we bring our Displacer Beast, and there's a doorman at the frat who collects our invitations and is very impressed that we have a Displacer Beast. Then he charges us a 10 gold cover fee, except for Cash, because Cash brought his kombucha and he brought his own booze. No cover for him. I tried to talk my way out of paying, but they were not having any of that. And Kelvin, who had spent all his money on this armor he never got, was fucking broke, just patting his pockets. Shucks, I forgot my wallet. So Cordelia had to pay for him. But then we get into the party, and Cordelia goes to get a drink, and Sebastian starts chatting her up. Cash and I, forever roomies, like this. I'm crossing my fingers right now. Cash and Marlin go to play beer pong, and Kelvin goes to talk to Stefan the Bard, that one we saw playing the ukulele earlier. he got invited to be the live music. So he's in a corner playing music, and Kelvin goes up and starts talking to him. And while this guy is like jamming out with his instrument, he's giving Kelvin a pep talk because Kelvin's just not been having a good time in his first week of college. And then Sir Ketchup uses Detect Evil or something like that and realizes everyone who's a brother at this frat is undead and evil. So he starts going around to the rest of the party as we're scattered around, starts whispering to us, "Hey, everyone here is undead and evil. I'm gonna jump them." Then he does it. And there's a bunch of fighting. At the start, I use a spell to create an illusion of Princess Zuba escaping, like running away in a corner, which is enough to distract a couple people, and they're yelling out, "Hey, you're supposed to be tied up upstairs." I think one guy chased after him, but then he tried to grab his arm and it went through. It became a useless illusion. But it did tell us at least where the prince was. I was hoping for a bigger distraction. And then there's some normal fight stuff happening. I'm using my crossbow spell, pulling out a white bolt. I think radiant damage would do well against undead, and I start shooting at them. All the frat brothers are trying to bite us because they're vampires and they're trying to suck everyone's blood. And there's a lot of weird sexual innuendo going around. And then Orgel casts Fireball, and I think he hits 6 of them, and 5 of them failed to save. Altogether, I think he dealt something like 120, 130 damage, and also lit the house on fire. And he had some proud half-orc wizard moment, like, "That's wizarding, ha ha ha." And after that, we mostly fucked up everyone else in the downstairs area where we were. I think one of our guys went down. I don't remember who, but Kelvin with his healing spells just brought him back up right away. And we also had a Displacer Beast on our side because Jem was like, "You're my best friend, fight these people for me." I did that once in middle school. That's not a joke. Anyway, so as we're cleaning up this ground floor fight and the fire's spreading, Cash runs upstairs and finds Princess Zuba tied to a chair, and at the far end of the room is the Dean. And the Dean is climbing out the window. Like when we found him, he had one leg hanging out of the window and he's just halfway through. And Cash calls out to us and tells us what he sees. Or I think he has some racial ability or something where he can just form a mental bond with someone. And of course, as his roommate, he chose me, so I had a mental bond with him. So he told me from upstairs what he was seeing. So I sprinted across the room and up the stairs. As I did so, I ran through the fire. And a DM rolled and said, "You take 1 point of fire damage." And I said, in reaction, I cast Absorb Elements to cancel out the fire damage, which is really unnecessary, but I just did it because I wanted to cast another spell to try to trigger a Wild Surge. And I rolled a 3 on the Surge, and I had to be a 2 or lower to get the thing to happen, but since it was already the end, we pretty much already killed everyone, the demon was probably going to get away. The DM was like, "Yeah, fuck it, whatever, you get the Surge, roll your D100. And I rolled a 66, which, if you don't have the table pulled up already to look it up, like a fucking idiot, a 66 is, I create 3 lightning bolts to attack people I can see, and each one does 4d10 damage. And a DM continuing to fudge rules said, I can finish my movement, get all the way upstairs, so I can see the Dean, and I can send all 3 lightning bolts at one person. So I get upstairs, and the Dean sees me, and he says, what are you doing in here? You're not even a real wizard!" And I manlet shrieked, "I am a real wizard!" And I fucking thunder smashed him. I collected up 12 d10s from my bag of dice, rolled them all at once, and I hit him for 72 lightning damage, which one-shot him. And I'm pretty sure the Dean was intended to get away, but now he's dead. And that was basically the end of the session. And then we went around the table doing kind of epilogue things. I don't remember most of them, but Marlin's was, he goes back to the Thieves Guild for a holiday break or after the first semester or something. And he starts telling them the story of this whole fight and how he created this crazy lightning bolt and killed the Dean. For the first time ever, he told a story without embellishing or lying about it. And everyone in the guild thought, that's bullshit, you didn't do that, and now they're finally starting to doubt if he's a real wizard. So when he comes back to school, he's suddenly under a lot of pressure to actually learn magic because now someone's actually onto him. And Orgel approaches Marlin, and he's starting to come around because, as he saw in that final fight, we both did some crazy shit with magic. He didn't see mine, but I ran upstairs and then this giant lightning bolt that shook the fucking house and thundered through the whole frat row. Everyone's pretty convinced I'm a wizard now, except Orgel, but he's come around, so he comes up and says, I don't know what your deal is, but I'll help you with whatever it is. You just gotta come clean with me. And for the first time ever, Marlin breaks down and tells the whole story of how he ended up in his position, and he's going through this whole thing just getting increasingly panicked as he's realizing how deep in he is, where he doesn't really pay attention to what's happening, stumbles into some situation, panics and lies, and it just keeps happening. So Orgel says, alright, fine, I'll help you. I'll help you learn some magic as we go through the school. And Cash is so enamored with Marlin that he's just decided he's going to stick with whatever Marlin does. So the three of us get a house off campus, finish our school, and after graduation, Marlin and Cash go back to the Thieves Guild, and Cash works there, being too naive to realize he's committing crimes. He just thinks this is what we do. We're just doing stuff. This is what it's like to be in the material plane. And eventually people realize how crazy strong and good his kombucha is, and we start selling it, and the Thieves Guild basically goes legitimate as a kombucha business. I think that's about it. The DM said he might want to do a continuation of this campaign at some point, which would be great because I'd love to find out the consequences for Orgel for burning down a house, doing what his dad did with the fire, and for me for killing the dean. Good times. I suppose a follow-up campaign would alter our epilogues, but I would just try to play in a way that fulfills my destiny, like any sane person would. Anyway, that's it. I recorded this in November, and my intention was to put it out then and include here an explanation for why I was going to take 2 months off. But then I just took the 2 months off without finishing, and so now this part is pointless. But there was a part of it that made me laugh, so I'm going to end with that. Context free. I don't know what I'm talking about when I'm being so fucking vague about it. I might as well just give you a fucking vlog post. Hey guys, today I went to Starbucks and bought 7 ketchup macchiatos. Those are limited time, only in whatever month it is. Shut up.